Where I'm from, it's not Philadelphia, it's not New York City. I'm from a place called Scottsville, Kentucky. We are the home of nothing. We have 5,000 people. That's including the Amish village there. And you know, it's really, really rural. And so being a rural town, not a lot of money there. And you know, I can remember for as long as I can remember having money problems in the family. And you know, I remember being about that age where you're starting to learn about money and you're starting to learn that, in my case, we don't have any. And you know, I must have been 8 or 9 years old, and I wake up in the middle of the night. It's 2, 3 in the morning, and I'm really thirsty, so I go into the kitchen, and you know, I'm gonna get some water, and I see my mom there, and she's at the living room table, just covered in bills, just as you know, end-to-end phone bills, electric, water, and I see her, and she's got her head in her hands, and she's just sobbing, just crying, and I remember the feeling of being in that situation, and the feeling of hopelessness, and the feeling of I can't do anything here. And I remember saying to myself then, I don't want to end up like this. And one day, if I have kids, I don't want them to ever have to feel this way. And so, you know, asking how to become successful, how do you get out of that situation? Well, you know, I got the same advice I think probably most of you got. You know, Christoph, you want to be successful, you got to work hard, you got to get good grades, you got to go to university, then maybe go to more university, then maybe go to more university. And in my case, it was, Christoph, you got to work hard, you got to get good grades, then you got to go to university, but we can't afford it, so you need to pick something, get really, really good at it. That way you can get a scholarship to university, and you know, you'll be successful and go work for a big company, retire in Florida, it's going to be great. And so I'm like, all right, I need to pick something, so I'm thinking, okay, it could be a football player maybe be a basketball player, maybe be a baseball player. I chose clarinet player. Guess I thought it would help me out with the ladies. And you know, I worked really, really hard at that, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Vanderbilt University in Nashville, and you know, was able to study with this lady, Cassie Lee, who at that time was one of the best 25, 30 clarinet players alive. And I remember reading a book before I went off to university, this line, and it said, if you want to know where you're going to be in 5 years' time, or you want to know where you're going to be in 10 years' time, take what you're doing right now. Find someone else who's doing exactly the same thing and is really good at it, but it's just been doing it for 5 years longer than you. And that's where you're going to be in 5 years. And so working with Cassie Lee, it was strange because I could see, okay, this is the path I'm on. This is where I'm going to go. I'm going to end up exactly in her shoes if I turn out to be good enough, if I make it, if I can pound away 16 hours a day in a practice room, if I can maybe get lucky enough, if I maybe have everything that it takes. This is a, you know, preview of coming attractions. And what I saw was not what I had in my head. What I saw was a lady who worked 7 days a week. And I remember she invited me over to her house once for spaghetti. It was like the clarinet player's spaghetti party, yeah. So we get there, and you know, this lady, she doesn't even have a TV in her house. She's got a little living room with a chair, a music stand, hundreds of stacks of music, and she was always stressed out. She was never motivated. She never had an unbelievable attitude. She was just getting by, just like my family, just gotten by. And 2 years into university, I come in for a lesson one day and sit down. She's like, all right, get out your music. And I look at her and I say, Cassie, can I talk to you? She's like, yeah, sure, what's up? I said, listen, I don't think I want your life. And she kind of stared at me for a second, and then she said, go close the door. And I appreciate this conversation so much. I came back and I sat down, and she said, listen, please don't tell anyone that I told you this, because I'll get fired if you do. But go do something else. This is a hard life. Truth be told, the reason I teach here is because I don't even make enough at the orchestra to pay my bills. And you've got big things you want to do for yourself. You've got big things you want to do for your family. I'd be lying to you if I told you it could happen here. It won't. And you know, I appreciate that advice so much. So I left Vanderbilt. I got into the restaurant business and started out there bussing tables and working my way up. Eventually made waiter. And you know, I'd always had this preconceived notion that, you know, if you were born poor, you're going to end up poor. If you're born middle class, you're going to end up middle class. If you're born rich, you're going to end up rich. That's what I was taught, and that's what I believed. And after 2 years of working at this restaurant, I got put in charge of the VIP room. So basically my job was to wait on really rich people all day, make them feel great. And, you know, that was in my head that, okay, well, these people are rich because that's where they came from. And what I learned over the next 2 years was really enlightening. I learned that that's not how it is. Every single one of the people that I met in there, all the friends I made there, they were all self-made. They all owned their own company. And most of them started out in a lot worse situation than I did. They were just hungry enough to get it. So I went on this rampage of okay, well, if they can do it, I can do it. You know, if they were from that situation, then I can get out of my situation too. How am I going to do it? So I started reading a lot. I didn't have any money, but I had a credit card. So I'd go to Barnes & Noble, and I had this routine. So I'd go to Barnes & Noble, I'd buy about 20 books on success or leadership or running a business or self-help or any of these things that are supposed to teach you how to become, you know, financially wealthy. And then I also bought a big Oxford English dictionary. And so what I would do is I'd read the book very, very, very carefully, and then I would put it under the dictionary for a few days so it looked like it had never been read. And then I'd take the books back to Barnes & Noble, return them. Yeah, no, I didn't read these. You know, they were a gift, wrong gift, you know. And I did this for 8 months. I did this, and you know, eventually I'm coming back in. I'm like, yeah, I need to return these. They're like, really? Again? Let me guess, unread, right? Okay. But, you know, all these books, I learned so much, and they really taught the same thing that we teach. They talked about attitude. They talked about leadership. They talked about getting out of your comfort zone. They talked about expanding your horizons. And after a while, you know, I remember running into this author, Robert Kiyosaki, reading all his books. He wrote this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, who probably a lot of you guys are familiar with. And, you know, so I remember reading every book that he had this one weekend, and I'm getting so frustrated. This is 8 months. I'm going through everything I can. I'm like, okay, I get it. I agree. I understand, but where do I go? What do I do now? You know, I'm expecting to turn the page, and it's like, okay, if you agree, then call this number, and we'll get you set up, you know?